that he's open to bombing Iran back to the Stone Ages. Is that not a US president bragging about committing war crimes and crimes against humanity?
Yes, he's threatened war crimes. I mean, the idea that you would threaten electrical plants, that you would threaten bombing civilians, those are war crimes. I mean, even hitting power plants has to be proportional. You can't have civilian harm outweigh.
Donald Trump is dragging the world into an unauthorized, catastrophic war with Iran. And a senior progressive congressman has just blown the lid off the entire operation, calling it out for what it fundamentally is: an illegal, immoral blunder that borders on war crimes. Representative Ro Khanna sat down with journalist Mehdi Hasan on Zeteo and delivered a blistering critique that doesn't just expose Donald Trump's unhinged hawkishness, but also shines a brutal, necessary spotlight on the spinelessness of the Democratic Party establishment. Khanna didn't mince his words. He confirmed that Trump's public threats to bomb Iran back to the Stone Age and target civilian infrastructure are explicit declarations of intent to commit war crimes under international law. Even more damning, he revealed how the corporate political class is actively stalling on holding Trump accountable, with hawkish figures like Chuck Schumer historically enabling this exact type of dangerous militarism. This clip is a masterclass in political accountability. It shows how Trump's fake, right-wing populist anti-war rhetoric during the 2024 campaign was a complete fraud designed to deceive ordinary, working-class families, only to immediately hand a $500 billion bonanza to the military-industrial complex, while public services at home are left to rot. What is at stake here is the ultimate subversion of democratic accountability, a billionaire president committing acts of international aggression without congressional approval, while ordinary people pay the price in blood and defunded public services. If you are new here, take a second to subscribe, it really helps the channel. I'll give you my thoughts at the end after the clip.
What's happening in Iran today? We have these reports of a downed American fighter jet, reports of a rescue operation. You've been against this war. What do you make of this latest development?
Well, first of all, my thoughts are with the service members and their families. I'm relieved from the reports that one of the service members has been rescued. That would be miraculous and is a testament to the ingenuity of our service members. But I am so saddened that they're losing their lives for a war that is immoral and illegal and a blunder. I mean, we're not achieving anything. We've replaced Khamenei with Khamenei Jr. Khamenei, at least his father, had a fatwa against nuclear weapons. Khamenei Jr. does not. And what if we take out Khamenei Jr.? We'll get the IRGC. The IRGC is more hardline than the clerics. I mean, they opposed the JCPOA with Obama. So we have done nothing in terms of moving the Iranian regime to oppose nuclear weapons.
Do you worry that this latest action with the downed fighter, and it would just be more fuel for Donald Trump to escalate?
I do worry. I mean, this is always the danger of these kind of wars. You have casualties, and then it feeds the sense that we need to take retaliatory action, and then it escalates. Or this idea that we're going to go to Karg Island because if we go there, we're going to pressure Iran to open the Strait of Hormuz. I mean, these are escalatory moves. What we need is an immediate ceasefire for us to stop bombing, Israel to stop bombing, Iran to stop bombing, and then to go to Oman and to go to other brokers and say how we can get an agreement. The challenge is the deal we're probably going to get is worse than the deal we would have gotten prior to the war. And that's the challenge that Trump faces and knows.
I mean, Iran is making more money from oil sales than it made before the war. You mentioned that the war is illegal and immoral. There's a minority of Democrats in your party in Congress who publicly at least seem to think it's moral and legal. When you and Thomas Massie introduced a war powers resolution in the early days of this conflict, it failed by 7 votes. 4 Democrats voted against it. One of them was Congressman Juan Vargas of California. And he said that he's voting against it because of the Iranian government's crackdown on protesters he pointed to earlier this year. He said it was, that made this war moral. You're going against a very evil regime. What is your reaction to that line of reasoning, that the Iranian government's behavior towards its own population is what justifies an intervention by the US? You hear it often.
Well, we should have learned this lesson. Of course, the Iranian government was brutal in cracking down on those protesters. Of course, they should be condemned for those human rights violations. But this was the argument to go into Libya. It made things worse with Gaddafi. This was the argument to go in against Saddam Hussein. It made things worse. These wars of intervention against powerful countries where you have 90 million population do not lead to better outcomes. It's an arrogance that militarily we can do that. And so I just think that recent history is an argument against that.
Now the war has become very unpopular. Democrats, including Vargas, are signaling support for a new war powers resolution. Congressman Greg Meeks, who is on the House Foreign Affairs Committee supposedly leading this effort, he's still yet to call for a vote on it. Even as Republicans like Nancy Mace say they might support this, do you think Democratic leadership is stalling on this vote? Do you think they're dragging their heels on this?
I don't. Let me say this. When we got to 200 votes, this was the first time that we had leadership's strong support for a war powers resolution. Usually when Massey and I try these things, we get about half the Congress. They've actually whipped and are working on getting the votes. I think they want to make sure that we have a successful vote. What I will say is that...
But why wait several weeks? I mean, the war's happening now. People are dying right now. Pilots are being downed right now. Why is Gregory Meeks saying we'll wait till April? I mean,
well, I think
this is why people get frustrated
with
Congress.
This is the fecklessness of Congress. I mean...
yeah, but Congress is not some abstract entity. It is people like Gregory Meeks. It is people like Hakeem Jeffries.
Yes, but the problem is that you have a Speaker of the House who has us adjourned. I mean, that is absurd for 2 weeks.
But the Democrats could take a stronger rhetorical position on this. They could say we need to vote now on this illegal war.
My view is we should be pushing to be called back into Congress today. We should all be in Washington, and we should be voting every single day on the war powers resolution.
Isn't the real issue, Congressman Khanna, that you're opposed to this war? But a lot of Democrats are not. Privately, they support this war. It's only because Donald Trump is doing this war that they're publicly against it. If Biden was doing this, if Kamala Harris was doing this, Chuck Schumer would be rah-rahing on from the sides. He would love a war with Iran. He attacked Trump from the right prior to this war, saying he's not tough enough on Iran.
Well, Chuck Schumer isn't the Democratic Party. I mean, Chuck Schumer
he's one of the two leaders of your party in Congress.
He is. His polling is
but he is
about where
But
Trump's
your colleagues have not got rid of him. He is currently the Senate minority.
They should. But the point is that there may be a few people like Schumer privately cheering, but that is not the vast sentiment in the Democratic Party. The vast sentiment in the Democratic Party is that this war was a strategic blunder, that the money should be going to investing in jobs here. By the way, I mean, talk about an America Last policy, $400 billion more for a Department of War. We could get free childcare for that, $10 a day, free public college.
Yep.
We could get 1,000
We ran exactly that piece on Zeteo, making that point. What would you say to people who say that the strategic blunder that has happened was enabled in part by Joe Biden? I was talking to Ben Rhodes, former Obama Deputy National Security Advisor. He and I were talking about how Joe Biden failed to get America back into the nuclear deal, which he'd promised to do on the campaign trail in 2020. Right. He tried for like a very short period in 2021 and then moved on, got distracted, never did it, which opened the door to this war. Is that fair criticism?
I believe that Joe Biden should have worked to get the nuclear deal done. But one of the most dishonest campaigns that Trump and Vance ran was that Kamala Harris was somehow going to get us into a war in the Middle East and Iran, and they weren't. So I do not believe that if Biden had won a second term or Kamala Harris had won, that we would have had a war in Iran.
No,
they made a mistake
with you,
on the not getting into the deal, but they would not have shown this kind of recklessness.
But isn't the problem, and I've asked some of your colleagues in Congress the same question, let me ask you the same question. I agree with you that Donald Trump ran a fake anti-war campaign in 2024. He went to Michigan and said, Kamala and Liz Cheney will get you into Middle East wars.
And do you agree with me that Harris or Biden wouldn't have gotten us into a war?
I agree with that. But let me add the caveat. They didn't message or signal that they wouldn't have got into this war. So when I point out now on social media that this war wouldn't be happening if Trump hadn't won, people, you know what they do? They immediately quote Kamala Harris saying during the campaign, Iran is our greatest adversary. They quote her saying all options were on the table for her as president against Iran. That kind of rhetoric did make her sound like a hawk. It did make her sound like someone who would take military action against Iran. She left the lane open, the anti-war lane open to Donald Trump.
Well, look, I agree with you that this was a mistake of the campaigning, having Liz Cheney campaigning in
What
Michigan.
message does that send?
What message does it send?
That was a mistake, right? To say Iran is America's greatest adversary?
The tragedy of that campaign is Kamala Harris, the Kamala Harris I know, and I don't know her very well, but just know her because of California, had far more humanitarian instincts and instincts of restraint than her campaign led on. And
so
Trump
was it a mistake for her to say that Iran is America's greatest adversary?
Yeah, I mean, that's just not true,
exactly.
Actually. I mean, and I don't know which consultant put that in, but this happens. They said, you probably have to be tough to be a woman and Indian American, African American to look like Commander-in-Chief.
She talked about a lethal military
and what the country wants is, no, we don't want these wars. We want focus on people at home. So Trump ran a better rhetorical campaign, but had no substance. Kamala Harris would have had much more substance, but failed on the rhetoric.
And now he's taking a very pro-war stance. He's just unveiled a budget today for 2027, which increases, as you said, the Pentagon budget by $500 billion. He said he's deliberately, we're not going to pay for daycare because we have to pay for wars. That is
he's admitting it.
That is the Trump. He's also said in his address from the White House on Wednesday that he's open to bombing Iran back to the Stone Ages. Is that not a U.S. president bragging about committing war crimes and crimes against humanity?
Yes, he's threatened war crimes. I mean, the idea that you would threaten electrical plants, that you would threaten bombing civilians, those are war crimes. I mean, even hitting power plants has to be proportional. You can't have civilian harm outweigh military targets under international law.
Why are more Democrats saying this? I don't hear people saying he's committing war crimes.
He's threatening war crimes. I mean, he's threatening war crimes.
He's also committing. He blew up a civilian bridge yesterday. There was no military value to that. He bragged about it.
But I think we should say that I've said that he should be impeached over these things. I mean, that these are this is not the way America conducts itself in the world. That we have higher standards, and that it is shameful. It's undermining our moral credibility in the world.
We did a poll with Dropsite recently, which found that 52% of Americans believe that Trump attacked Iran partly so he could distract from the Epstein files disaster. Do you agree with that?
I think it's convenient that the searches for Epstein have gone down. Unfortunately, I wish it were that simple. I think there is a deeper militarism still in the foreign policy establishment that has been itching for a war with Iran for probably since 1979, and they found a president willing to do it. So, the simplistic explanation...
What we are witnessing here is a masterclass in independent journalism from Mehdi Hasan, and a rare display of actual, uncompromised political backbone from Representative Ro Khanna. Let's break this clip down moment by moment, because it completely demolishes the entire right-wing populist grift surrounding Donald Trump's foreign policy, while exposing the severe institutional rot inside Washington. First, let's address the reality of this war. Khanna labels it precisely for what it is: immoral, illegal, and a monumental strategic blunder. The media-industrial complex loves to frame these conflicts with slick graphics and sanitized surgical language. But look at the concrete facts Khanna brings to light. Trump's reckless military escalation hasn't made anyone safer. It has systematically disempowered moderate factions within Iran and handed total control to hardline elements like the Islamic Revolutionary Guard Corps, IRGC, the very group that explicitly opposed the Obama-era nuclear peace deal. This isn't strength. It is a calculated, cyclical destabilization that benefits absolutely no one except defense contractors and military profiteers. And who is paying for it? This is where the core of our center-left pro-worker values comes in. Trump just unveiled a massive budget that pumps an extra $500 billion into the Pentagon to fund these unauthorized foreign wars, while openly stating that the state cannot afford to pay for universal childcare or public education at home. It is a textbook example of right-wing, billionaire-backed politics. Infinite money for bombs, destruction, and imperial overreach, but absolutely pennies for the welfare of the working class, public services, and social solidarity. But Khanna doesn't stop at exposing Trump. He names names within his own party, and we have to talk about it. He calls out corporate Democrats like Congressman Juan Vargas, who used cynical humanitarian arguments to vote against a war powers resolution that could have stopped this conflict early on. This is the same fraudulent rhetoric used to justify the catastrophes in Iraq and Libya. It's an arrogant, neo-conservative mindset wrapped in a progressive flag. Furthermore, Hasan correctly targets Senate Minority Leader Chuck Schumer, a man who has historically attacked Trump from the right on foreign policy, proving that elite elements of the Democratic establishment are completely beholden to the same hawkish militarism as the Republicans. Let's also talk about the absolute fraud of Trump's 2024 campaign. Trump and J.D. Vance ran a profoundly dishonest populist campaign, going to places like Michigan to present themselves as anti-war doves compared to Kamala Harris. It was a cynical performance. And as Hasan rightly points out, Harris's campaign heavily blundered by listening to corporate consultants who told her to sound hawkish, lean into a lethal military rhetoric, and campaign with neocon figures like Liz Cheney. That fatal mistake left the anti-war lane wide open for a right-wing demagogue like Trump to fake his way into power. Now that he's in office, the mask is completely off. Trump is bragging about blowing up civilian bridges and threatening to bomb power plants' actions. Khanna explicitly notes constitute war crimes under international law, demanding Trump's immediate impeachment. Finally, look at the public perception surrounding the Epstein files. Whether the war was a direct, literal distraction to bury those documents, or a product of long-standing Pentagon hawkishness since 1979, the result is the same. The corporate media shifted its focus away from oligarchic corruption and billionaire malfeasance the second the bombs started dropping. We cannot allow right-wing populism to masquerade as the voice of the working class while it actively loots the public treasury for global warfare. We need a democratic, accountable politics that stands up for working people at home, rejects billionaire-driven culture wars, and demands the rule of law both domestically and internationally. If you made it to the end, hit like and subscribe. It really helps the channel. Drop your thoughts in the comments below. I'll catch you in the next one.